So we're just going to continue the practice questions we were doing from last class. So this question is a data analysis question, and it's worth 3 marks in total. So we're going to give you guys 4 minutes to complete it. So I'm just going to put my timer on and then we can get started. So 4 minutes on the clock. Make sure you read the caption, read the axes so you know what's going on in the data. Okay, and your 4 minutes starts now. So you've got 4 minutes to complete both part A and part B. So what I'll do is I'm just going to pause the recording here and then we'll resume once you guys have done. Okay, so let's have a look at part A question. So part A question says, identify one trend in figure 6. So this is figure 6. When we're identifying the trend, remember I said, even if it's worth 1 mark, just chuck in the year because the year is given to you and it's good to integrate that stimulus data or that material into your answer as well. Okay, so identify one trend. Now in the trend, we're looking for a general pattern. And remember when we're doing trends, I said that it's really good to just look at the whole graph, okay, rather than just looking at one specific section, okay? Looking at these two would be better for something like a comparison, like compare the data kind of question. But we want to look at the whole or most of the data when we're doing a trend question, okay? Because a trend question is basically a pattern. What pattern are we looking for? We can't look at a pattern just by looking at a quarter of the entire data set or a half of the data set. We have to look at the whole data together, okay, to get that trend. So just to give you guys a sample answer, and while you guys read that sample answer, I'll have a look at some of the answers coming in the chat box as well. This is a sample answer you could have said. You could have said in 2016 to 2017, we can see that across all age groups, boys have a higher rate of being hospitalized compared to girls. Or you could say boys have a higher rate of being hospitalized compared to all other groups, okay? So that's a clear answer there. We don't need to include numbers of the rate of hospitalization. We just need to include that descriptive wording there. Descriptive wording means we're quantifying, okay? We're saying higher rate, okay? Across all age groups, okay? We're making that clear trend. We're showing that clear pattern there. And we are integrating what the data is about. It's about hospitalization. We're talking about the specific group that we're focusing on, okay? That's basically what you can talk about. You could even say the opposite. You could say in 2016 to 2017, girls across all age groups showed a lower rate of being hospitalized compared to boys, okay? It goes both ways, in other words. So that's the basic answer for the first question. So I'll maybe get you guys to have a look at that or copy it down or add any additions to your own answer to make improvements if you have to. And I'll quickly read some of the answers coming in the chat now. Okay, so alrighty, so the next answer, guys, we are looking for the health status. So I've underlined the word health status. It won't always be underlined for you, but whenever you see the word health status, you should know that you're being asked to link to those indicators. Okay, there's indicators we learned about all the way in chapter 2, but we always keep coming back to them. In every SAC, there's at least one question. And the same will be for this SAC as well. We will have a question linking back to health status. The reason being that there's a lot of health status linking back that you do and questions that you do where you link back to health status in unit 3 and 4 as well. So we want to make sure that you guys know from the get-go what words come to mind when you think of health status. Okay, so we're looking at words like, I think it's easier to open a text box here, looking at words like morbidity, mortality, life expectancy, okay, prevalence. Okay, we can talk about even rate of hospitalization itself for unit 1 and 2 at least is a health status indicator. Okay, you can talk about something like core activity limitation. Okay, if a child gets injured enough that they become handicapped or disabled, that's going to affect their ability to be independent people for the rest of their life. If it causes them to, for example, be bound to a wheelchair for the rest of their life. You can even talk about others like burden of disease. You can talk about under 5 mortality rate, okay, for specific groups in that table there for up to the age of 5. You can talk about child mortality rate. You can talk about mortality rate by itself, as we mentioned above there. So there's so many different things you can talk about, but you have to make sure that it's relevant and that what you're saying makes sense. Okay, so I'll show you guys the sample answer first. So I've written, when a child is hospitalized for injury, it means the child has experienced some physical harm or accident, which impacts the health status by increasing their morbidity. Okay, morbidity does refer to physical harm or illness or injury or disability. You could have even said that if a child is hospitalized for an injury that's serious enough, and they die as a result of that injury, that contributes to increased mortality, which is death. You could talk about the fact that when a child gets hospitalized for injury, it's contributing to the overall total number of cases of children getting hospitalized for injury. Okay, it's increasing the prevalence of injury in that population. You can talk about something like under 5 mortality. Okay, if it's a really young child, like a 2 or 3 year old who's accidentally crawled outside and fallen into the backyard pool and they've drowned, and you're not able to resuscitate that child in hospital, if they've died in hospital, for example, that is again contributing to the under 5 mortality rate because they were under the age of 5 when they died. Okay, so there's so many ways you can answer this question, but it's just a matter of linking back to the question, which is children getting hospitalized for injury, could be any kind of injury, as well as linking back to the health status by naming what indicator you're using. Okay, so that's the basic idea. So hopefully you guys had similar answers there and you understand how you would answer this question if it was to come up in a SAC situation. Alrighty, so let's just get rid of all the scribbles we've got on the screen here. So get rid of that and move on to the next slide. Oh, I didn't rub that out, did I? Okay, get rid of that. Okay, so the next question, last data analysis question we're looking at for today is a little bit different from the ones we normally do. It's a pie graph. Again, pie graphs are very easy to interpret and analyze, more easier than a bar graph even. But this question again is more to do with explanation. It says explain. So you're going to be doing a little bit more explaining here. Okay, how positive relationships within a family can impact any one dimension of health and well-being. You don't have to use the data here. You can if you want to, but it's not going to influence your marks in any way. It's more about the explaining. Okay, so you're linking it to one dimension. Oh, sorry, you do have to use the data here. I didn't read the question properly. With reference to the data. So you do need to include the data here, and then you need to link that data to how it impacts one dimension of health and well-being. So you can choose any bit of the data. Very good ability of a family to get along with one another, poor ability, anything that you want to do. It depends on whether you want to choose to focus on the negative side of things or the positive side of things. So again, you choose your data accordingly. If you want to choose the positive side of things, you might go with either of these three. If you want to talk about the negative side, like a family not being able to get along with one another, you have to make reference to one of those two. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea. So again, 5 minutes on the clock for this one. So I'll just put my timer on. Okay, your time starts now. And I'll just pause the recording here and then we'll resume once your answers are complete. So for this question, guys, all we really need to do is we need to look at this idea of just getting whatever the data is and just kind of representing it in our answer. So if I choose to focus on excellent, because the question asks for positive relationships, I can focus on excellent, very good, or good here. So if I chose to focus on excellent, I'd include the year. So I'd say in 2016, 23% of parents of children aged 12 to 13 rated the family's ability to get along with each other as being excellent. So what I'm doing here is I'm unpacking what the data is about, okay, showing that I clearly know what the data is representing or demonstrating there. That's 2 marks. You got 1 mark there for the data that you're bringing in, the percentage, and 1 mark for the other aspects of the data. So naming what the data represents, it remains an excellent ability, and then the year. Okay, so that's half a mark each there. Okay, overall, though, it's 1 mark for including those aspects of the data. So 1 and 1 is 2. The other 2 marks come from naming which dimension of health you're talking about, which is 1 mark. It's an easy 1 mark for most of us, I think. And then the other 1 mark comes from linking how that dimension of health and well-being you're discussing is relevant to this idea of the rating of a family's ability. So you could say that when you've got a family getting along with each other really well, that means more positive relationships within the family. And that means you've got a strong source of social support. Okay, social support is a clear example of when you've got more social support, you've got better health and well-being. Okay, you could even talk about increased interactions, positive relationships. You could talk about a better ability to communicate and negotiate with one another. Okay, all of those things are examples of good social skills, which will boost our social health and well-being. So yeah, just a matter of linking to the data and then just giving the explanation accordingly, okay? And we know that we have to bring the data in here because it says with reference to the data in figure 1, okay? If this question just said explain without any reference to the data, you don't really need to bring that data in, and it wouldn't be worth 4 marks in that case. It would probably just be worth 2 marks, okay? So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense about how to approach this question. When it says with reference to the data, easier to just start off with the data, put the data right at the beginning, and then just do your explanation or justification afterwards, okay? Because it's easier to bring in the data and say, this is the data, blah, 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 in 2016 is indicate the 23%, and then say, because of this, the impact of having such positive relations, it's easier to structure your answer like this rather than start with the explanation and try to bring in the data and fit it at the end. It might be a little bit more difficult to do it that way. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. So I'm just going to stop the recording here.